You have heard this psalm at every funeral you have ever attended. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. 26 verses. No. 6 verses. 118 words in English. It is the most memorized passage in the entire Bible, quoted more often than John 3:16. And here is what I am going to show you in the next 25 minutes. Almost everything you picture when you hear this psalm is wrong. The green pastures, not green, not pastures. The valley of the shadow of death, not about dying. The table in the presence of enemies, not a metaphor. An actual shepherding practice that will change how you read the entire chapter. And the most shocking part, this psalm was not written for funerals. It was written by a man running for his life, and it contains one grammatical shift, right at the center, that most people have never noticed. When you see it, you will understand why this psalm has survived 3,000 years. That shift is at verse 4. We will get there in about 10 minutes. But first, you need to see what David actually saw when he wrote the opening line. Because it was not a Windows screensaver. Section 1. The pasture that isn't. When you hear green pastures, what do you picture? Rolling hills, lush grass, maybe a sparkling creek, some happy trees like a Bob Ross painting, a place so abundant the sheep barely need anyone. Now look at where David actually lived, the Judean wilderness, where David tended his father's flocks near Bethlehem, is a rocky desert, brown hills, scorching heat, almost no rain for most of the year. So where is the grass? Here is the detail that changes the whole psalm. At night, warm, humid air from the Mediterranean blows across the desert. When that air hits the side of a hill or a rock, something happens. A small tuft of grass pops up overnight. One tuft. Enough for one mouthful. Not more. Then the sheep has to look up at its shepherd. Where is the next mouthful? That is the green pasture of Psalm 23. Not a field of endless abundance where the sheep never needs the shepherd. A desert where grass appears one mouthful at a time, and the sheep survives by following the one who knows where the next mouthful is. Now bring that into your life, because this is not about sheep. Most of us want the Bob Ross version of God's provision, the endless green field, the overflowing bank account, the 5-year plan fully funded, so we never have to depend on anyone, including God. And when we get the desert instead, the job that only covers this month, the health that is only okay today, the clarity that only extends one step ahead, we assume something has gone wrong. David is saying, nothing has gone wrong. That is what being shepherded actually feels like. One mouthful. One day. Then you look up again. Give us this day our daily bread. Jesus was not being poetic. He was describing desert economics. But provision is the easy part of this psalm. The next line is where translators start to struggle, because David says the shepherd makes him lie down. And there is a reason sheep have to be made. Section 2. Still waters and circular paths. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Here is a fact about sheep that shepherds have known for thousands of years. Sheep are instinctively afraid of running water. A flock of thirsty sheep will stand at the edge of a rushing stream, dying of thirst, staring at the water, and not drink. The current terrifies them. They can drown in it. Their wool soaks up water and pulls them under. So what does the shepherd do? He walks into the stream and moves a few stones. He builds a small dam with his hands, creating a quiet pool at the edge of the rushing water. And only then, when the water is still, do the sheep drink. The still waters are not found. They are made by the shepherd in the middle of the current. Think about what terrifies you right now. The thing you know you need to face, the conversation, the decision, the diagnosis follow-up, the application, and cannot make yourself approach. You are the sheep at the edge of the stream, thirsty, frozen. The promise of this verse is not that the river stops. It is that the shepherd steps into it first. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness. One more detail from the land itself. The Hebrew word for paths here describes something circular. Winding tracks worn into the sides of the Judean hills by generations of sheep. Here is why that matters. You cannot walk straight down a steep desert mountain. You would fall. The shepherd leads the sheep down in slow circles around the hill, a path that, at any given moment, feels like it is going the wrong way. The sheep on that path is constantly walking in a direction that does not point at the destination. It circles, it doubles back, and it arrives safely, because the path was never supposed to be straight. If your life right now feels like it is circling, like you have passed this same spot before, like the direct route everyone else seems to be on has never opened up for you, this verse says, that may not be lostness, that may be the path. And now we come to the center of the psalm, the verse everyone knows, the verse almost everyone misreads, and the hidden shift I promised you at the beginning, section 3, the valley and the shift. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Because of 10,000 funerals, we hear this verse as a verse about dying, about the final passage from this world to the next. It is not. Or at least, it was not written to be. The Hebrew word is tsalmavet, a compound of shadow and death, better translated deep darkness, or death shadow. It appears in Jeremiah describing the wilderness Israel walked through after Egypt, a land of drought and death shadow. It describes a place you walk through while alive. In the Judean hills, shepherds knew these places literally, narrow ravines between high rock walls, where the sun barely reaches the bottom, where predators wait, where bandits ambush, where one wrong step means a broken leg no one will find. Here is the detail that matters. The shepherd chose to lead the flock through those ravines. Why? Because the valleys were the route between grazing lands, the lowest passes, the water runoff, the way from one pasture to the next, through the valley, not around it. Which means, if you are in a dark valley, it does not mean you left the path. The valley may be the path. The shepherd may have led you here, not to harm you, but because this is the way through. This verse is not about your funeral. It is about your Tuesday. The season you are in right now that feels like walls on both sides and no sun. David's claim is not, I will never enter the valley. He entered it constantly. This is a man who spent years hiding in these exact ravines, while King Saul hunted him with an army. His claim is, I will fear no evil, not because the valley is safe, because of who is in it with him. And now, the shift. Watch closely. In verses 1 through 3, how does David talk about God? He makes me lie down. He leads me. He restores my soul. Third person. David is talking about God, the way you describe someone to a friend. Now verse 4, the exact moment he enters the valley of deep darkness. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. He. And then, in the darkest place in the psalm, you. David stops talking about God and starts talking to him. The grammar itself tells the story. In the green pastures, God is a subject to describe. In the valley, God is a presence to address. 3,000 years of readers have felt this without seeing it. Shepherds in Israel still enact it. When the sun is up and the land is safe, the shepherd walks behind the flock and lets them roam ahead. But as the sun sets and the shadows come, he moves in close. right into the middle of the sheep. In the dark, the shepherd draws nearer. That is why this psalm gets read in hospital rooms and at gravesides, not because it is about death, but because everyone who has walked through a valley knows the difference between talking about God and finding yourself, mid-darkness, talking to Him. And then the psalm does something bizarre. In the very next verse, the sheep disappear entirely, and suddenly there is a dinner table in a war zone. Most people read straight past it. Do not. Section 4, a table in a war zone. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Read plainly. This verse is strange. Who eats dinner surrounded by enemies? Who could? There are two layers here, and both will change how you see this verse. Layer 1, the shepherd's table. In the shepherding culture of the ancient Near East, tables, flat mesas of grazing land in the high country, had to be prepared before the flock arrived. The shepherd would go up ahead of the sheep, alone, and walk the ground. He looked for snake holes and poured oil at the openings so vipers could not strike. He cleared poisonous plants. He checked the perimeter for signs of wolves and cougars. By the time the sheep set foot on that tableland, their shepherd had already walked every square meter of it. The dangers were still nearby, the enemies still present in the surrounding rocks, but the ground itself had been prepared. Whatever you are walking into this week, the meeting, the appointment, the conversation you are dreading, this verse makes a specific claim. The shepherd goes first. Not that the enemies vanish, that the ground has been walked before you got there. Layer 2, the host. But there is a second image here, and it is royal. In ancient Near Eastern culture, to seat a guest at your table and anoint their head with oil was the highest act of honor and protection a host could offer. To eat at someone's table created a covenant bond. The host was now obligated to defend you. So when David says God sets a table for him in the presence of his enemies, while Saul's soldiers are still hunting him through these hills, he is saying something audacious. The king has publicly seated me as his guest. My enemies can watch. They cannot touch the table. My cup runneth over. The host keeps pouring past the brim. In a culture where a host stopped filling your cup when it was time for you to leave, an overflowing cup meant one thing. You are welcome here as long as you want to stay. And that leads to the last line, where one Hebrew word turns the entire psalm from comfort into something almost fierce. Section 5, the pursuit. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Follow is the politest translation imaginable. The Hebrew verb is radaf, and everywhere else in the Old Testament it means to pursue, to chase, to hunt down. It is the word used for armies pursuing a fleeing enemy. David, a man who spent years being ratified by Saul's soldiers through these very valleys, chooses that exact word and flips it. For the rest of my life, the thing hunting me down is goodness. And he said, covenant mercy, the loyal love we studied in a previous video. Not goodness will trail along behind me if I keep up. Goodness is chasing me, on my worst day, in the valley. When I wander, and sheep always wander, it comes after me. One shepherd scholar noted, the picture is like two sheepdogs running at the back of the flock, refusing to let a single sheep fall behind and be lost. You have spent your whole life being chased by things. Deadlines, debts, regrets, the feeling of being behind. David ends his psalm with the wildest claim in it. For the one who belongs to this shepherd, the thing that catches you in the end is mercy. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The psalm that began in a desert One mouthful of grass at a time ends at a permanent address. The guest becomes family. Closing. So let me give you the psalm back, the way David wrote it, not a funeral poem, a survival document, written by a man who knew what it was to be hunted, hungry, and lost in the dark, about a shepherd who provides one mouthful at a time, who stills the water himself, whose path circles but never fails, who moves closer when the sun goes down, who walks the dangerous ground first, who seats you at his table in full view of everything that wants you gone, and who then sends goodness and mercy to hunt you down for the rest of your life. 1,000 years after David, a rabbi from Nazareth stood in front of a crowd and picked up this exact psalm when he said, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." His audience knew precisely which psalm he was claiming to be the subject of. That is why they picked up stones. He was saying, the shepherd David wrote about, the one who walks into the valley with you, has a face. "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." Not, he is with me. Thou